Hey all, okay, I had intended to do a co-hosted show this week, but, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but those of you who I haven't interviewed yet and who haven't done stuff, and the one of you who told me you're dealing with something for a few weeks, actually two of you have said that, it's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the one of you who is the reason this show hasn't been done yet this week. And you know who you are. I'm not naming anyone in particular because I hope you get your stuff together. I think you can contribute a lot to the content. I think you can also help out a lot behind the scenes. But my week is, for those of you who don't know what's going on, I have a largely flexible schedule. Which means, because I set my own schedule, I'm an independent contractor. I can work whenever the hell I want. But when I allocate time to do something, it means I'm not allocating time to do something else. So when I set aside a few hours to go over stuff and do a show, it means I set aside a few hours to go over stuff and do a show. It's like, it's one of those, like, okay, you miss one, okay, if fluke happens, miss two, okay, you're unlucky, 3, 4, 5, you don't have your shit together. I hope you get it together, but I can't wait on you anymore. So I'm at least going to cover the Apple stuff, because so much stuff has happened involving Apple this week, it's not even funny. Before I get into bashing Apple, I'm going to go over something Apple kinda did right. And when I say kind of, I mean half of it was good and half of it was more of the same bad. I'm referring to the new Mac Mini. It's like, for those of you who don't know, Apple did release a new Mac Mini, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought you hate Apple. Why are you taking it? It's like, yes, I hate Apple's guts. But given the amount of bashing on them about to do, I feel I have to give them credit for doing something kind of right. The two things I think Apple did, actually three things that Apple did right with the new Mac Mini was finally they got rid of that power supply from hell outside of the device and moved the power supply in the device. And for those of you who don't understand how absurd that is, I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. If those of you who have ever priced stuff from overseas and Amazon, the power supplies that go inside these microform cases that are DC-DC power supplies are smaller, more watts, and cost less than the big ones that go outside like Apple was using in previous versions of the Mac Mini. So why they ever did that was beyond me. So kudos, but maybe they just couldn't. I mean, if you took a Mac Mini apart, I mean, it's like, where would you put it in there? But it was like, well, you're using these parts and these parts. Why aren't you using these parts and these parts? It's like, it was one of those things that never really made sense, but I guess Steve Jobs had a vision of a big brick attached to another brick. He had a vision in the middle of the night. That's whatever. I guess the vision changed. They added an HDMI, which, like, they also have their mini DisplayPort on there, but they added an HDMI to it. All I have to say is, good. They're not fighting that war anymore. It's like they've acknowledged that everything else works on HDMI. You can make all the arguments you want. If I want to take something and plug it into a TV anywhere, there are two connectors that for the digital TVs you want to plug it in. Actually, three. S-Video, Composite, or HDMI. HDMI is the better one to use because it's higher quality, it's more reliable with the kind of aspect ratios computers are doing. Why you had to get an adapter cable all these years? I guess they figured people just weren't putting up with buying the adapter cable. It's like, the other thing they did right was you can now access the RAM easily in a Mac. Now, this also brings me to the first thing they did wrong. all the Mac Minis, well actually the higher end one's not true, but the baseline Mac Mini is still 2 gigabyte standard. Not 4, 2. Given that it's upgradable to 8, it isn't like putting 4 in there would have been, oh, you can't upgrade. We don't have anything to sell you. So the only reason not to put 4 gig of RAM in there standard, especially at the price, is to cheap out. The other thing that is still screwed up is the price. Because like I said, it's like they're using cheaper parts, yet somehow the price went up. Only in the iWorld does that make sense. Honestly, where the Mac Mini, for the type of system it is, should be priced is the high-end one should be $750 and the base one should be somewhere between $350 and $500. I would give them $500 with the following modifications: 4 gig standard, and ideally the ability to easily swap the hard drive, because you can do that in any other system, any other micro system except the Mac Mini. Just because they're a small form factor doesn't mean everything inside of it suddenly becomes inaccessible. It's only with the Mac that that's the case. If Apple wants to charge these premium prices, which in the case now is $700 and $1,000, they need to be a little bit above the jab. 4 gig and a little bit above the jab. It's kind of expected today. I'm not saying there aren't systems out there that have 2 gig, but let's face it, 4 gig is rapidly becoming the minimum. It's like 2 gigabyte today is like, you remember when we had those systems floating around that had 128 megabytes of RAM just because they were being cheap? That's what 2 gig is today. There are people on the PC side that sell that, but that's what they are. They're the cheap, little cheapy box system. Now, there is one high-end exception to that, but we're not going to get into that one. And for those of you who, let me let you on a little secret, actually. When you're importing everything direct from overseas, I realize on the retail side of things, the price between regular hard drive and solid state is pretty big. It's a wide margin of error. But at the base importer side, from the manufacturer side, the difference in cost is not that much. Equal size, yes. But without really cutting into the profit margins any, Apple could stick 128 gigabyte solid state drives into the Mac Mini without really spending any more money. So if they want to charge these high-end premium standards and have the hard drive be as inaccessible as possible without deadbolting the system with some type of thing that the doctor's sonic screwdriver can't open, that should be the hard drive that's in them standard. It just should. But they're moving in the right direction, so we got to give them credit for that. They just haven't come there enough. And the pricing still doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, to comment on things that some PC fanboys have been saying on this, yes, you can do more with less with a Unix system. A Unix-like system. So I will acknowledge that spec-wise, these systems are probably a little comparable, more comparable than they seem. But that's nothing that's exclusive to OS X. Any Unix-like system that's properly configured has those advantages, which means all that advantage of more or less, you also get Linux and BSD and a whole mess of other Unix-like systems. So it doesn't justify that ridiculous premium. I am up on time. We're going to have to get into all the fun that's been going on with the iPhone in the next part. I will see y'all there.